cities to continue to give free health care to illegal immigrants. At the same time, they threaten to defund their Border Patrol. They want to send billions of dollars to foreign countries, but they want to slash billions of dollars to help rural hospitals right here in America. That's what the Democrats are proposing in their ransom note. They want to subsidize free health care for people who refuse to work, who are working-age individuals and are healthy and ought to have a job. Yet they threaten the paychecks of the people whose job it is to keep our country safe. They demand this far-left wish list, or else they say they're going to shut down the government at midnight tomorrow. The biggest scam in this ransom note is these COVID-era Biden bonus payments. Democrats are demanding $400 billion to continue these subsidies forever. Well, let's remember that Democrats created these Biden bonus COVID subsidy payments during COVID in 2021. It was part of their reckless tax and spending bill. They passed it when they controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House. At the time that Biden started these bonus payments, most people realized that COVID was already behind us, but that didn't stop them. Democrats extended the payments again in 2022, and they set the expiration date for December of 2025. That's about 3 months from now. Democrats promised at that time when they put them into place that the Biden COVID bonus payments would be temporary. They weren't intended to last forever. Now, the Democrats in their ransom note to the Republicans and to President Trump is they want these temporary payments to go on forever. Mr. President, I have here the House report that came out on this 2021 reckless tax and spending bill. It's called American Rescue Plan 2021. This is a report of the Committee on the Budget, House of Representatives, to accompany H.R. 1319, February 24th, 2021. So I copied, instead of going through the whole 1,000-page document and bringing it here and throwing it on the floor, which is where it belongs, I copied page 215 and 216. What does it say about these bonus payments? They say right here, it applies, quote, during the public health emergency. The public health emergency is over. And it says in the payments, when you turn to the next page, they would go temporarily. Temporarily. That's their words, not mine. Well, Mr. President, COVID is over. Joe Biden lost. Democrats are in the minority. These Biden COVID bonus payments, they need to go away as well. They were just one more part of a big government giveaway, and now Chuck Schumer is here demanding that we make these bonus payments permanent. To me, temporary means temporary. It's not what the Democrats are demanding, just to keep the government open for 4 short weeks. It's preposterous. 12 years ago, in 2013, America faced another shutdown. At that time, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut sent out a press release. 2013, 12 years ago. In his press release, Senator Murphy of the minority party from Connecticut said this. He said, "There is a time and a place to debate health care." He went on to say, "but not when the funding of the federal government and all the lives that are impacted by it are hanging in the balance." He's not here today to hear those words, but his party needs to recognize that's exactly what they said 12 years ago. And today, Democrats like Senator Murphy are doing the very thing that he condemned here on this floor in his press release 12 years ago. Stunningly, the Democrats want to eliminate, of all things, the $50 billion Rural Health Transformation Fund. This is the fund that Republicans created to keep rural hospitals open. I'm a doctor. I practiced medicine in Wyoming for more than 20 years. I know what affordable, reliable, quality care means to our communities. They're lifelines to small communities. And yet yesterday on Meet the Press, the minority leader, Chuck Schumer, said rural hospitals are closing, so he wants to put the noose around their neck. This makes it worse. He is threatening, as part of his demand, to eliminate the $50 billion set aside for rural hospitals in America. Mr. President, last week I was at home in Wyoming. I attended a ribbon cutting in Pinedale for a new hospital. This is the first hospital ever in Sublette County, Wyoming. The nearest hospital is 85 miles away. There's another one 100 miles away. Depending on in the winter which roads are open, people in that community had to either drive 85 or 100 miles seeking health care. This is going to help the communities in Pinedale. It's going to save lives. It matters to those people. Yet the ransom note from Senator Schumer and the Democrats would shut it down, prevent all of these rural hospitals that are struggling that we provided for in our comprehensive economic plan that we passed in July. Schumer wants to pull the plug on all of it. It's part of their bill. It's part of the ransom note. It's what the Democrats are trying to do. Let's be honest. The Democrats have a political problem. The far left, their radical wing, is demanding a shutdown of the government. Their caucus is divided. The American people overwhelmingly want the government to remain open, to provide vital services to the people. They know that it costs money to shut down the government. It costs even more to reopen the government. Democrats don't seem to care. What we have here is a clean, bipartisan, continuing resolution to fund the government for the next 7 weeks. The House of Representatives already passed it with a bipartisan vote. And it keeps the government open for 7 weeks at the current funding levels. So it doesn't cut anything. It says, let's just continue to work on appropriations bills. It gives Republicans and Democrats an opportunity to work on the budgeting for next year, the appropriations process to keep the government open for the next year. President Trump's ready to sign it. It's here before the Senate and time to pass it. Senator Schumer has repeatedly bragged that Democrats never shut down the government when they were in the majority. I would remind the minority leader today that 13 times under Joe Biden, the Senate passed a clean, continuing resolution to keep the government open. We should do the same right now. Senator Schumer ought to remember those 13 times. Today should be no different. If this government shuts down, and it should not, it will clearly be a Schumer shutdown. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Democrat Whip.
Mr. President, Senator from Wyoming is a friend of mine, really. And though we may disagree on some political issues, I greatly respect him and glad to call him a colleague. But we do disagree on this point that he just made, and it's a very important disagreement because it affects every family in America. The decision was made in the big, beautiful budget bill by Donald Trump to cut $1 trillion out of Medicaid. Medicaid is a program which helps people who have limited income have health insurance. It also takes care of your mother and grandmother when they're in the nursing home. It's a critical element of funding health care in America. And the Republicans cut $1 trillion out of it. If you go to the hospitals in Illinois, some of them are great hospitals, others do great things, but you'll find that the hospitals that struggle to survive are ones that have more Medicaid patients than paying insurance patients. It's tougher margin, and many of them worry about it. And the notion of cutting $1 trillion out of this program worries them. Don't take my word for it. Ask the Illinois Hospital Association, or even if there is one, I'm sure there is, Wyoming Hospital Association, what the impact of cutting $1 trillion out of Medicaid reimbursement is going to be. Not good, particularly in rural areas. Senator Barrasso made reference to his situation in Wyoming. In the state of Illinois, we have plenty of these rural hospitals, and if one closes, it means your pregnant wife who goes into labor now has to drive 70 miles instead of 20 for that delivery. I'd hate to have to go through that. And yet that's what's going to happen. And so the position we're taking is that that kind of cut in Medicaid is going to hurt hospitals and hurt people across America. Secondly, there is a tax credit available for people in middle-income categories to buy health insurance. It's part of the Affordable Care Act, which was the Barack Obama plan that extended more health insurance coverage to America than we ever had in our history. How important is health insurance to you? I had a personal experience as a law student at Georgetown. I decided that I couldn't wait, and I asked a young lady to marry me, and she did. In my second year in law school, we learned that God was sending us a little baby. And we were so happy about it, and she arrived with her share of difficulties. I had no health insurance, none. What do you do as a student with a wife and a baby, and the baby's sick, when you have no health insurance? Well, Children's Hospital here in Washington, D.C. brought us into the so-called charity ward, and we waited to see who would walk through the door with the name Dr. So-and-so to take care of my daughter. I never felt more inadequate in my life as a father and a husband and not having health insurance. We got through it, she got through it too, and lived a good life. But the point was, there were moments when I worried that I couldn't provide the basics for my baby because I didn't have health insurance. 15 million Americans will lose their health insurance because of this Republican budget that I just referred to, the big, beautiful budget. 15 million will lose health insurance. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So when the Democrats say there are health care issues that are part of this debate on funding the government, that's what we're talking about. Keeping these hospitals open, critical hospitals in inner city as well in rural areas, making sure that people have their health insurance. And there's one third element I would add. I don't think we'll be able to negotiate it. Medical research. Ever hear of the National Institutes of Health? Well, sure you have. It's the best medical research agency of any government in the world. I went to the NIH about 12 years ago and met with Dr. Francis Collins, an amazing man who is head of the NIH. And I said to him, I really believe in what you do. Your research in cancer and heart disease and so many other things makes a difference. What can I do to help you? Well, he said, thank you for asking. There have been some people who've done remarkable things. I said, oh, I remember. There was a bipartisan coalition a few years back that doubled the budget in medical research for NIH. I said, I wish I could say I could do that again, but I don't think I can. What can I do? He said, give me and this agency 5% real growth each year in medical research, and we'll light up the scoreboard. We are so close finding cures and new drugs in so many areas that if you can give us consistent research, it'll make a difference. Came back to the Senate, sat down with my friends on both sides of the aisle. Roy Blunt, Republican senator from Missouri, was a leader in this effort. Lamar Alexander, Republican senator from Tennessee, another leader. Patty Murray, still serving as head of the Appropriations Committee and one of the best when it comes to medical research. We put our heads together, and over a span of 10 years, the budget for NIH medical research went from $30 billion to $48 billion. We got the 5% coming every single year. It was quite an achievement. 60% increase in that budget. Things were happening, good news, good developments when it came to cures and treatments. I was so proud of that effort and glad that it was bipartisan from the start. So what did the Trump budget suggest we do with medical research? Cut it back from $48 billion to $30, where we started 10 years ago. You know what happens when you cut back on research that basic? You know what happens, and I do too. When that terrible diagnosis happens at the doctor's office, it breaks your heart, and you finally stop crying and you say to the doctor, is there anything you can do? Is there a surgery, a medicine, anything you can do for someone I love very much? They say, well, there's a clinical trial. There's medical research underway. And it's a long shot, but you got a chance. It's hope. Medical research is hope. And it's one of the areas where I think Donald Trump's cuts are the most heartless cuts of all. Democrats care about this. I do. I'm willing to fight over it. I'm not willing to say, well, we'll just go on business as usual. Let's accept this. Let's cut back $1 trillion out of Medicaid. Let's take 15 million Americans and take away their health insurance. Let's cut back $18 billion in medical research each year, and we'll say it's just a clean, continuing resolution bill. That's what we're fighting over. Is it important? For me, it's one of the most important things we can do in terms of helping families across America. And let me tell you something that's going on. You should know about it. You will soon if you're covered by it. Health insurance has tax treatment that helps you pay the premiums. It makes a dramatic difference. And now, in a matter of days, health insurance companies are going to announce what the new premiums are going to be because of the budget bill, the big, beautiful budget bill of President Trump. They're going to go up dramatically. And as these premiums go up, some people won't be able to pay for them, and they'll be without health insurance, and others will see their family budget explode with an increased health insurance premium. That's the reality of this debate. It's not about who gets bragging rights and gets to beat on their chest, a Democrat or Republican. In my mind, it's a question of whether families across this country can count on us for the basics. And making sure that health care is there for America is one of the basics as far as I'm concerned. There's another issue I want to raise, relates to the administration, and you have to go back in history to appreciate it. Richard Nixon. Students of history, of course, know that name. Former vice president of the United States, former senator, he was a senator and a congressman, vice president under President Eisenhower, and then president of the United States. He went through a period we know as Watergate. It was controversial. Some people broke into the Democratic National Headquarters. They were caught. They were prosecuted. When it was all over, we had the Watergate investigation, and ultimately President Nixon resigned. But before he resigned, he instructed his staff to give him background information on his enemies list, the people that he considered to be his political enemies. And the word was out that they were going to be treated harshly by his administration, whether it's Department of Justice or the Internal Revenue Service. Well, we went through that chapter, he resigned, and then Congress came together, Democrats and Republicans, and said, we can never let this happen again. We can't let a president put his finger on somebody and say, that's a political enemy, go prosecute him. Try to find them guilty of a crime. Make sure they pay a fine. Give them bad publicity. We agreed on a bipartisan basis for standards between the White House, the Department of Justice, and Congress when it came to these political decisions that could ultimately result in prosecution. Well, under President Trump, we're back into the Nixon conversation about enemies list, except President Trump's enemies list is longer than anything Richard Nixon ever dreamed of. And that's what we're looking at now. On September 20th, the acting U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Eric Seibert, announced his resignation. Acting U.S. Attorney, appointed by Trump, resigned. Mr. Seibert resisted President Trump's demands to bring charges without sufficient evidence against New York Attorney General Letitia James and former FBI Director James Comey. Mr. Seibert, a Republican appointed by Donald Trump just a few weeks ago, stayed true to his oath to the Constitution and his commitment to follow the facts and the law. And for that, he was forced to resign his office. In his place, President Trump installed his personal attorney, an attorney with no experience as a prosecutor, never did it before, to indict James Comey in a politically motivated case considered by career prosecutors in that office too weak to bring charges. This indictment represents the latest step in President Trump's long crusade to weaponize the federal government against his perceived political enemies, a return to the days of Richard Nixon. We remember when the president was initially impeached, in the first of his historic 2 impeachments, after he attempted to pressure a foreign ally to dig up dirt against Joe Biden and his family. And we remember when President Trump turned a mob of insurrectionists loose on our Capitol, where they violently attempted to prevent the peaceful transfer of power leading to his second impeachment. I will never forget that day as long as I live, January 6th. It has been my honor to serve in this chamber 29 years. I've seen a lot. I'm honored to represent a great state like Illinois, but I will never forget that moment when we were sitting here counting the Electoral College votes as to what the American people had decided on the next president. Vice President Pence was presiding. We were seated in our chairs. I noticed something unusual. Those 2 doors opened, and 4 or 5 people walked in up to the vice president and literally yanked him out of his chair and took him out the door. We knew there was a political demonstration outside, but all of a sudden it turned bad and scary and dangerous. The Capitol Police came in and announced to us seated in this chamber, stay in your desks. We're going to make this a safe chamber in the Capitol. Don't worry about those people demonstrating outside. They're not going to get close to the chamber. Just stay where you are. We looked at one another and thought, what's next? Well, what was next was 10 minutes later, the same policeman came in and said, leave immediately. Don't take anything with you, just get out of the chamber. It's too dangerous for you to stay here. And we all, Democrats and Republicans, filed out those doors. You know what happened next. The insurrectionists took over this building. It was one of the most embarrassing moments in the history of the United States Capitol building. Imagine, if you will, for a moment, if you heard the news that the House of Commons in Parliament had its door broken down and people raided the chamber. You'd say to yourself, what is going on in England, for goodness sakes? The House of Commons taken over by people in the street? That is exactly what happened here. And it happened on January 6th. And so this president, embarrassed by that moment, maybe, who knows if he's ever embarrassed, decided he would go after the people who prosecuted the insurrectionists, the people who were prosecuted for crimes like beating up policemen. You all came here today and we welcome you to this chamber. The reason you're safe in this building today is a lot of women and men in uniform who are guarding you and me and all of our staff so that we can do the people's business. Those people were under attack by the January 6th insurrectionists. These were not curious tourists who came in here. They ended up beating on these police, and 140 of them were seriously injured. If you believe it, in this second administration, the president has gone further than Richard Nixon and what he's done before. His political appointees have fired FBI agents and federal prosecutors who were called on to prosecute the insurrectionists. He has installed loyalists whose chief qualification is their loyalty to him, not their loyalty to the law or the Constitution. We recently learned a top federal prosecutor in Sacramento was fired after she advised the Border Patrol to comply with a court order. Yes, the Trump administration fired a career prosecutor for following a court order. Never in our history in the history of our country has a president so brazenly demanded the baseless prosecution of his rivals, and he doesn't even try to conceal it or hide it. He glories in this constitutional outrage. In a social media post, President Trump issued a command to Attorney General Bondi, and I quote, "They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. We can't delay any longer." He's referring to the prosecution of James Comey. Imagine that, a sitting president commanding his attorney general to prosecute state and federal officials who simply tried to uphold the rule of law. That's exactly what this president is doing. What Richard Nixon was stopped from doing, he is doing. Since Watergate, Republican and Democratic presidents alike respect the independence of the Justice Department, recognizing that shielding it from the pull of politics was essential to safeguarding the rule of law. Under President Trump, those constitutional guardrails have been removed, destroyed. I want to be clear. What you're seeing from the Trump White House is not normal. This just isn't some inside the Beltway drama. If the president can turn the Department of Justice and the FBI into his own personal police force to target his political enemies, he can just as easily turn it against ordinary Americans. And the dam is already starting to break. The president sent active duty forces into Los Angeles earlier this year to put down protest of his administration's cruel immigration raids. He threatened to make war on the city of Chicago, which I'm honored to represent, by sending forces into that city as well as Memphis, Tennessee, and has now ordered the military to Portland with authorization to use, quote, full force in Portland, Oregon. The governor of Oregon, the mayor of Portland said what the president said about being at war and unlivable is just plain wrong, and yet he does it. It's a slippery slope into authoritarianism. Once DOJ and our military have been politicized, there are few guardrails left. So while today it's Letitia James and James Comey who are the targets, tomorrow it could be our fellow citizens who dare to even criticize the policies of the Trump regime. That is the risk we face and the danger that lies ahead in its perilous moment. That's why I've opened an investigation calling for answers from Attorney General Bondi, including making available several Trump-installed loyalists for questioning. The American people deserve to know if the chief law enforcement agency of the United States is following the Constitution or pursuing political revenge. Let me end this. During the Watergate scandal, President Nixon attempted to bend the Department of Justice to his will, to go after his enemies, conceal his administration's involvement in this unlawful conduct. When President Nixon did this, Democrats and Republicans on a bipartisan basis in Congress sounded the alarm together and defended the rule of law. On a bipartisan basis, we responded to Nixon. Those legislatures recognized the danger posed by a president attempting to wield power and benefit him personally. They knew it was unconstitutional, and they stood firm on a bipartisan basis in Congress. Where is that same courage today? It's time for the Republicans to join Democrats and step up and say, enough is enough. This is not about political parties. It's about protecting our democracy from a would-be dictator intent on setting it all ablaze to achieve his personal aims. This is a code red alarm for the rule of law. And unless we come together to stop the president's abuses, I fear this administration will continue to corrode our American democracy. My question is this: is there one Republican senator in this chamber who gives a damn? I yield the floor.